Hello friends, welcome back to my channel Finance Eco India. India is on the brink of its biggest GST reform since 2017. Today at the 56th GST Council meeting, proposals are unfolding that could dramatically simplify the tax structure and influence prices from essential goods to luxury items. Please stay tuned till last for more detailed explanation. Before we dive deeper into changes, let's pause and understand why GST 2.0 is coming at this moment. India's existing GST system is built on four major slabs: 5%, 12%, 18%, and 28%. While this framework helped bring the nation under a unified tax regime back in 2017, over time it has created layer of complexity. Business, especially small and medium enterprises, often struggle with compliance, and consumers frequently face confusion about what falls under which slab. This four slab complexity has led to distortion in consumption. For example, sometimes consider daily use are taxed higher than expected, which discourages purchases, while others receive uneven treatment depending on classification. In effect, the system has begun to hold back demand and consumer confidence. At the same time, India's economy is facing external pressure. Rising US trade tariffs on Indian goods, particularly textile, chemicals, and engineering products, are putting pressure on our export sectors. According to report by the Financial Times and Reuters, global trade headwinds are already reducing margin for Indian exporters. In such an environment, boosting domestic consumption become even more critical. Here's that's where this sweeping GST revision come in. By simplifying slabs and reducing taxes on essential and mass consumption goods, the government hopes to unlock pent-up demand inside India. When household goods, personal care products, and appliances become cheaper, consumption is likely to rise. On the flip side, by creating a higher 40% slab for luxury and sin goods, the government ensures that its revenue base remains intact, which also signaling a progressive tax structure where those who consume luxury items contribute more. In a short, GST 2.0 is not just a tax reform, it is a strategic economic response. It seeks to balance the need of consumers, business, and the government's physical health, all while preparing India for stronger domestic led growth in the coming years. This is why now is the right time for GST 2.0 to simplify consumption, stimulate household demand, and shield the economy against global uncertainties. Now we come to the heart of GST 2.0, what's actually changing in India's tax slab. Firstly, the government plans to retire the 12% and 28% slabs, which have long complicated tax compliances and pricing. Instead, the system will be streamlined into two core rates: 5% for essential goods and 18% for standard goods and services. This shift towards simplicity reflects growing consensus on making tax compliance easier and more transparent. The proposal has been broadly endorsed across the GST Council and by a leading expert panel. Secondly, recognizing that luxury consumption and harmful product should bear a heavier burden, a new 40% slab is proposed for sin and luxury items such as tobacco, alcohol, and premium vehicles. This ensures a more equitable structure, balancing consumer relief with revenue needs. Let's break down the practical impact. Essentials like groceries, seed, medicine, and household staples, currently taxed at 12%, are expected to move to the 5% slab. This is expected to lower price and ease inflationary pressure for everyday consumers. Durables such as TVs, ACs, refrigerators, two-wheelers and small cars, currently under 28%, will likely be moved to the 18% slab, making them significantly more affordable. One way to understand this is that most everyday products will fall under just two categories: cheap essential or standard goods, helping both business with simpler categorization and consumer with clearer expectations. Of course, simplifying isn't without challenges. State had expressed concern over revenue loss. Karnataka alone warned of a potential 15,000 crore deficit unless compensation is provided. Yet policymakers have pushed back, urging that revenue shortfall are likely temporary and will be offset by improved compliance and consumption. Let's explore the heart of GST 2.0, where real benefit meets the consumer. This slide highlights what's about to become more affordable. First, consider staple and everyday goods often taxed at 12% items such as chocolate, cooking oil, toothpaste, noodles, sugar, and personal care products like shampoo and talcum powder. According to writers, these items could see their GST drop to 5%, a move designed to offer direct relief to household and ease inflation pressure. Beyond that, a report by Bank of Baroda noted that essential food items, milk, powder, dry fruits, dates, jams, and butters are expected to move into the 5% slab too, significantly reducing grocery bill for many Indian families. Second, durable goods such as air conditioner, large screen television, dishwasher, and certain home appliances, currently taxed at 28%, are slated to shift down to 18%. This shift is projected to drive meaningful cost reductions. Estimates suggest 7% to 10% rural retail prices, translating to price drop of thousands of rupees on premium models. This reduction isn't just bulk saving, it's about making aspirational products like ACs and TVs more accessible, especially during the festival Diwali season. Manufacturers like Blue Star expect a surge in demand thanks to these changes. To summarize, this reform is a triple win. Household saves on groceries and personal care items. Consumer durability purchases become more affordable. The structural simplification reduces confusion in tax classification. Let's now turn our attention to the second key pillar of GST 2.0, the elevated tax for sin and luxury items. Under the new plan, the government proposes a 40% GST slab targeting high-end and demerit goods. This includes sin items such as tobacco, pan masala, and gaming, as well as luxury goods like high-end automobiles and premium apparel. To be precise, the government aims to use this sin tax not just for revenue, but as a discouragement tool for harmful consumptions, while also ensuring the tax burden shift appropriately toward high income groups. One income groups. One particularly notable proposal involves luxury electric vehicles over 50 lakh. The tax panel suggests raising GST from just 5% to a hefty 40%, targeting imported EVs such as Tesla, BMW, and Mercedes Benz models. This is a decisive reversal from previous incentives aimed at promoting EV adoption, showing that high value consumption will now be taxed more heavily. The impact of these proposed changes is already rippling through markets. Stock of industries tied to sin goods, tobacco, alcohol, and online gaming slide up to 4.5% following report of 40% sin tax. It's a clear signal that markets are anticipating the impact of these new costs on demand. This sin and luxury tax slab effectively replaced the earlier system of multiple high level cess. For example, tobacco products previously involved multiple overlapping taxes, GST, compensation cess, central excise, and more, reaching combined rates at as high as 100% or more. The new 40% slab simplifies and consolidates this structure, which still ensure robust revenue. In a sense, this elevated slab aims to discourage consumption of harmful or unnecessary high-end products, compensate for revenue foregone by lowering GST on essential goods, simplify tax structure by replacing multiple tax layers. Sin goods and luxury items may now carry a steep 40% GST, signaling a progressive shift in India's consumption tax policy. Let's explore how the GST 2.0 reform could reshape two everyday sectors that touch millions: automobile and insurance. Firstly, good news for car buyers. The new proposal is to cut GST on small petrol and diesel cars from the current 28% to 18%. Automakers like Maruti Suzuki, Hyundai, and Tata Motors, which rely heavily on compact car sales, are poised to gain. In fact, after this announcement, auto stocks surged. Maruti's share jumped nearly 9%, signaling investors' confidence in renewed demand. This change isn't just about lower taxes, it's about affordability at a time when many buyers are price sensitive, especially during Diwali season. Reducing a key cost component could lift small car sales and make personal mobility more accessible. On the insurance side, there's also a compelling shift underway. Currently taxed at 18%, both health and life insurance premium may be cut to as low as 5% or even zero GST under the reform plan. This move not only tightens the cost burden, lightens the cost burden for policyholder, but may also boost insurance penetration across India. Many households find premium prohibitive, and a lower GST could change that dynamics. That said, some reports raise a cautionary note. Insurer may not immediately pass the benefit to consumer if input tax credit aren't aligned, potentially muting short-term saving. Still, the long-term view shows promise. Greater uptake in health and life policies can build more resilient financial habits across the population. To recap, small car buyers stand to benefit from a 10% point reduction in GST, which may translate to real cost saving and broader market demand. Insurance policyholder could see significant relief, especially if GST falls to 5% or is removed completely. For both sectors, this reform is not just physical, it's about letting more people drive and protect their future affordably. As our simplified GST structure becomes clearer, its impact on state finance is immediately unmistakable. Experts estimate the annual revenue loss from state could range from 16 billion to $22 billion or 1.5 to 2 lakh crore. State themselves warn this could represent a 20% hit to their GST income, a figure they may destabilize welfare program, infrastructural project, and even governance budget. Karnataka alone projects a loss of 15,000 crore and is demanding firm compensation guarantees before agreeing to reforms. Similarly, several opposition-ruled states, including Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and West Bengal, are collectively calling for a 5-year compensation mechanism to offset these physical strains. Prime Minister Modi government has pledged that mechanisms are in place to mitigate these burdens and has expressed confidence in meeting the physical deficit target despite the cuts. In summary, simplifying GST means modernizing and energizing India's tax system, but it also raises critical questions about physical federalism and state autonomy. Bridge building between the center and state will be the key to smoothing this transition. Let's examine how India's financial market had responded to the GST 2.0 reform prospect. Following an announcement of potential GST simplification, the BSE Sensex rallied strongly, gaining over 400 points, while the Nifty 50 rose around 0.5% by mid-session. This reflects clear investor optimism about the reform's ability to stimulate consumption and business activity. The metal sector led the charge with hopes of improved profitability, reflecting regional and global demand trends, adding momentum to the indices. At the same time, auto and consumer share advanced significantly, indicating that market expect a demand uplift from lower GST on these segments. Across the board, 15 of the 16 major sectors ended higher, illustrating how broad this rally was, spanning everything from metal to consumer goods. Why this enthusiasm? Analysts point to the expected GST cut on essential automotive and durables as a macroeconomic stimulus. Lower tax rate on these items, particularly those with high elasticity, can drive up consumption, aiding companies across sector and improving overall demand for goods and services. This sentiment is shaping portfolio strategies. Many investors are rebalancing towards sectors like auto, consumer durable, and consumer discretionary, anticipating a consumption-led pickup in demand. In summary, market across Bombay Sensex and Nifty 50 are responding positively to GST reform news. The rally is rooted in expectation of increased spending from lower tax burdens. Sector tied to consumer demand, especially autos and household goods, are likely the immediate beneficiaries. This movement suggests that investors are pricing in a hopeful scenario, a GST dividend that drives economic revival through consumption-led markets. As we turn to what's on the horizon, here's how the GST trajectory unfolds. GST Council meeting September 3 to 4, 2025. The 56th GST Council is convening over 2 days in New Delhi under the leadership of Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. The Council is deliberating key elements of GST 2.0, including simplification to a two-slab structure, 5% and 18%, the addition of a 40% slab for luxury and thin goods, and tax reduction spanning essential to automobile and FMCG products. This meeting is critical. State official and central policy makers are seeking consensus on restating the tax framework to reduce complexity and ease compliance. Many observers see this discussion as the final determining phase for the reform. Final decision and affirmation. By the close of this session on September 4th, the Council is expected to lock in the proposed slab changes and outline timelines for notification and implementation. Approval here could mark the transition from planning to execution, moving GST 2.0 from concept to policy. Implementation ahead of Diwali 2025. If all goes as scheduled, the new tax rate will be rolled out in the time for Diwali 2025. Many consumer and business could see the benefit before the Festival of Light. Report indicates the government is keen to deliver on Prime Minister Modi's promise of a GST Diwali gift aimed at catalyzing spending and easing inflation. So let's summarize the timeline. Independence Day announcement on August 15, blueprint for GST 2.0 unveiled. GST Council meeting September 3 to 4th, final decision and policy approvals. Diwali 2025 rollout, new tax structure in effect for the festive season. As we wrap up today's overview, let's revisit the core essence of GST 2.0 and what it means for Indian economy. Firstly, the reform is fundamentally about simplification by streamlining the GST structure phasing out the 12% and 28% slab and introducing a clear two-tier system of 5% for essentials and 18% for standard goods, alongside 40% for sin and luxury items. The government is aiming to make tax compliance smoother and more transparent. Next, the benefits are twofold. Consumer relief. Price sensitive goods such as staple personal care items, appliances, and two-wheelers are said to become more affordable. This move could ease inflationary pressure and bring immediate relief to households visiting local kirana stores. Economic stimulus. Simplified tax rate may boost consumption and demand, especially ahead of the festive season. Estimates suggest this could flow into sectors such as FMCG, automobiles, and housing goods, potentially adding GDP growth. However, the road ahead isn't without its challenges. State revenue pressure. States are raising concern about possible short-term revenue loss, ranging between 16 to 21 billions. Many are demanding clear compensation mechanism to cushion their budget. Administrative coordination. Beyond tax slab, the reform requires seamless coordination across center and state for implementation, effective communication with business, and robust mechanism to ensure that tax relief actually reaches consumer. So, objective outcome: simplified tax slab, greater clarity for consumer, and business easing consumer burden, boost in purchasing power and consumption, need for physical balanced state compensation, smooth rollout are essential. GST 2.0 isn't just a tax reform, it's a strategic move to revive demand, invigorate growth, and embed fairness in India's indirect taxation. As the Council finalized decision and the reform rollout, the real test would be in execution and equitable implementation across the country. If you like the content helpful, please like, share and subscribe to my channel Finance Eco India, and please comment. Thank you and Jai Hind.